Hi, I'm Chris, also known as That French Blog. This video will be the first one in a series I'm starting today about cheap full-frame SLR. Because yes, we are now at a point where you can find cheap full-frame SLR. And the first that we are going to review together, the granddaddy of them all, is this camera, the Canon 5D Mark I. I'll tell you more after this. The Canon 5D was certainly not the first full-frame SLR, but it was the first that was somewhat affordable. I said somewhat because in 2005, when it was released, it was selling for $3,300, quite a chunky amount of money. However, it was a bargain compared to other full-frame cameras that were more in the range of $6,000 to $8,000. So at this price range, it really was the first mass-produced full-frame camera, and this explains why today you can have it for quite cheap. It's a well-built camera, made to last, and this is why today you still find a lot of them on the market, and the price are quite low. I found this one on eBay for about €200. So let's have a look at the camera. So this is a beast. It's quite a chunky camera by today's standard, especially if you're used with mirrorless camera. But for the time, it was an achievement for Canon to manage to do a full-frame camera in what is quite a small body. It's slightly bigger than the Canon 20D, which was sold at the time and which was an APS-C camera. So the size is quite good. I have to say, having big hand myself, I'm not necessarily always keen on small camera, and this is a good size. To me, it fits perfectly in my hand, so that is good. The build quality is what would be expected from a Canon of this era. It was designed for the pro, so it's got a magnesium alloy body that is mostly covered with hard plastic and rubber. As you can see, this camera aged very well. But I have to say that a lot of them on the market show more signs of wear and tear. Looking at the camera, the first thing that you notice is that there is no flash here, as you would expect. And that, to me, is a mistake made by Canon. Although those little pop-up flash are not necessarily great, they have their use if you want to photography someone who is in shadow or something like that, if you just want to add a bit of light on the portrait. So for that it's good, and it's a pity it's missing. Short of that, the ergonomy is dated. It's not the best. I find personally that it's not the easiest camera to use. I much prefer the production from Nikon on that front, but I might be biased because I am more of a Nikon person than a Canon person. To switch the camera on, you use that little switch and you put it on, and it's turned on immediately. If you're used to live view cameras, notice that this screen is always used for menu, if you press here, or to review the pictures that you've taken. It is not used at all to compose the pictures. It is not used either to set the camera. What you have here is a secondary screen, which is the one that you use to make sure that the camera is set in the way you intend it. This camera can be lit up at night by using this little button. It's lit up orange. I'm not sure you can see it here. None of the other buttons are lit up at night. Okay, that's only this little screen. That's all the indication you have. If you're familiar with the Canon of the era, you will not be surprised by the way the menus are organized. You will find everything in the menu section. There is quite a lot of setting that you can do on this camera, especially if you go into those custom functions. There is lots of things you can set up there. The info button will let you check the setting, and then you can review your picture with this little arrow there. You have a button here that will you access the most useful setting quite quickly. The first one let you use the autofocus and white balance. And the way those buttons work is they always have two settings associated to it: autofocus, white balance, drive, ISO, metering, and bracketing, not bracketing, shift, exposure shift, whatever you want to call it. And the way they work is if you press the button, then the wheel at the back will let you change here the white balance, so the second setting, and the one the one at the front is the other one, so here is the autofocus. Okay, so same thing here, drive ISO, here I change drive with one shot, continuous shot or timer, and with the back wheel here I change the ISO setting, and so on. If you don't press any button, those two will let you change either your aperture or your speed. On this side of the camera, you have a selector that let you use different modes, like the fully automatic, program mode, speed priority, aperture priority, fully manual, B pose, bulb it says here, and C that let you call some custom setting that you can memorize. There is 9-point autofocus on this camera, and you can select them by using this little button here. You press on it, and with that button you can choose between the 9 points. Okay, this will be automatic, this central, and so on and so forth. There are 6 more autofocus points on the sensor, or inside the camera, more exactly than on the sensor. But those ones are used for predictive autofocus, but they are not selectable directly from here. The memory card is stored behind that door, and please notice that when you open that door, you open it by putting it at the back. Look what it will do here, up. It switches the camera off, which can be an issue if the camera is still writing the buffer to the card. So make sure that when you open the door, the camera has finished writing data to the card. And the card, as you can see, is a compact flash, a system that's quite old nowadays. However, those cards need to be formatted in FAT32, 32 bits, which means that you can go with cards that are 4 GB and above without any issue. The battery is accessible at the bottom of the camera and is obviously rechargeable. You find that there is also a memory backup battery that is here, and this battery, you need to access it through there. I mean, it said open, but you cannot open it. If you want to open it, you have to use a little screwdriver to remove that little screw, and then you can pull this tray, and the battery here, it's a CR2016, which is quite a common type of battery. It's easy to find and easy to replace once you know that you have to remove that little screw. Make sure you don't lose it, and make sure that you are screwing it properly afterwards. While we are on this side, you'll see different connector. You've got a connection for studio flashes here, a remote control there, video output, and a USB port. The USB port here is really slow. I really advise you to remove the memory card and put it in your computer. However, you can control the camera using that USB port. Video out if you want to review your picture on a screen. Remember, this is only a photographic camera. You will not be able to take any videos with that camera. On the front of the camera, you have the button to release the lens. Nothing very here, and the button to test the depth of field here, as well as an illuminator for the autofocus. In the viewfinder, you will find most of the information that you can see on that screen, but you will also find the location of all your AF points and also the spots measuring circle. The star will tell you that you have AE locked in progress. The little flash tells you that the flash is ready, and it can tell you whether it's high-speed sync, if it's got a little edge to the side, or whether it's been locked. You can also have an indication of flash exposure compensation. You will then see your shutter speed, the aperture selected, your exposure level indicator, white balance that is in use, the maximum burst, which is how many pictures you can take before the buffer will be full, and a big one that is a focus confirmation light that lit up when focusing is done. This camera was raised in 2005, and we are now in 2022, almost 2023. So we are talking about a camera here that is at least 17 years old. And the progress made by the photography industry during those 17 years have been tremendous. However, don't let this trick you into thinking that you cannot take good picture with this camera. The sensor is a 13 million pixel sensor with only 12 million effective pixels. You might think that is not enough in a world where most of the phones have 3 or 4 times this. Well, you are mistaken. For most uses, it's enough. If your purpose is to publish some picture on the internet, it's far more than what the screen will be able to display anyway. And this being a large sensor, it gives quite a good quality of picture. Actually, it gives an excellent quality of picture. The ISO is limited by today's standard. We are talking here from 100 to 1600 ISO maximum, and at this level you already have quite a bit of degradation to the picture. However, if you stay up to 400 ISO, the results are outstanding. You might think that that's not a lot, 400. Well, come on. For the last 50 years, people have been using films that were not that sensitive. So yes, you can take excellent picture. You will not maybe be able to take the best picture in low light, and that is, I mean, people will say that, but I mean, even in low light, you can take good picture with this camera. What you cannot do is like take fast picture in low light, that's for sure. If you look on the internet for picture taken with this camera, you'll be surprised of the result. It's an excellent camera. And even today, you can get astonishing result for that. I would say that if you're a student in photography, for example, and you want a camera that is decent but cheap, go for it. You will not look back. Another strong point of this camera, obviously, is that being part of the EOS range, you have access to a phenomenal range of lenses. And since Canon has announced that they are not doing any more reflex camera, I think that more and more of those lenses will be found for cheap on the second-hand market, and that is certainly a plus for this camera. All the lenses that's been made for the OS series from the first EOS 650 in the 80s to today's can be used on this camera, with the exception of the EFS lenses that are specifically done for APS-C camera and that unfortunately will not mount. It is mechanically impossible to mount them on this camera. But apart from that, you will have access to lots of lenses, lots of them very good, and most of them very cheap. You even have access to the third-party lenses, like this Sigma lens that I bought. And if I remember well, I've paid for 40 euros for that lens. It's a 2870 2.84 lens. It's not a constant aperture lens, but I've been surprised by the result of that lens as well. So here I've got a set that cost me 240 euros and that can deliver really, really good quality picture. We are living in a good time to be taking pictures, that I can tell. Last strong point of this camera as well is the capacity of the battery. You can take hundreds and hundreds of pictures, some say even up to 1,000 pictures with this battery. This is thanks to the fact, obviously, that the screen at the back is barely used, so you can go forever with this on one battery. It's brilliant. So what are the disadvantages of this camera compared to today's production? Well, it's quite big, it's a bit slow to use, it's ergonomically it's not the best in terms of I don't find it always easy to set it the way I want quickly. But that's about it. The screen at the back is certainly not as good as what you find on today's camera as well. It is small, it's not very bright, and also the resolution is quite poor. That's one of the drawbacks as well. Once again, it's not something that will impact the quality of the picture you're taking. And the last cons on that camera, as I've mentioned before, is the lack of a little pop-up screen that can be very useful sometimes. So here we are, the review of this camera. So yes, it is a good camera. For the price, go for it. It's brilliant. Certainly have my seal of approval. It might be 17 years old, but it's a brilliant, brilliant tool, and you can have hours of fun and make thousands of pictures with a camera like this for very, very cheap. Go for it. That's all for today, guys. I hope you enjoyed this review. If you did, please press on the like button, subscribe to my channel, and I'll see you next time.